All right, 1 minute time and we can start. Let us wait that we have maybe some more participants.
Hi, Harry.
All right, it's 3 o'clock in Helsinki. So good afternoon from Helsinki, although it may be morning or late evening where you are. But anyway, welcome. I am Harri Sahavirta. I'm at the moment chef for ENSULIB. And I wish to welcome you all to the very first virtual event arranged by Environment, Sustainability and Libraries IFLA section. This event is the very first since ENSULIB has gained its section status only from the beginning of this year, after being IFLA SIC for 10 years. And I'm very glad that we have as our co-host, our former host section, Preservation and Conservation. Originally, our plan was to have a satellite meeting in Cork Island during the IFLA FAIC 2020 under the same title, Environmentally Inspiring and Engaging Buildings, Research, Education and Library Services. Unfortunately, IFLA FAIC was cancelled due to COVID-19 epidemic, and the satellite meeting could not be arranged. Hence, it was suggested that a virtual event might replace the original meeting in the autumn 2020. However, the ENSULIB team was so busy to prepare the transition from SIC to section that we could realize the plan only now. Well, we may say better late than never. So today we will finally hear short presentations of those projects which were supposed to be introduced in the Cork satellite. For my delight, Green Libraries and Environmental Sustainability is well represented in these presentations, but we have also attempted to include the preservation and conservation aspect. And in this point, let me introduce you Ornella Foglieni from the Preservation and Conservation section. The screen is yours.
Thank you, Harri. You can hear me? Okay.
Yes.
Good afternoon from Milan. Milan is cloudy now. I am Ornella Foglieni, new chair of the Standing Committee Preservation and Conservation, being in charge since few days, 10 days. I'm pleased to bring a short greeting on behalf of our Standing Committee to everybody, to speakers, connected people. So I'm also a member involved for the satellite last year, now concentrating in this short webinar, but very exciting. I will thank Harri Ari or Ari, I don't know the pronunciation, and all colleagues of new section ENSULIB, many wishing for the future. I want to mention and thank also the two previous chairs of the Preservation and Conservation, Alenka Kavcic and James Drews, for their competence, energy, and empathy. But I cannot forget the late Daniel Mincio too, with whom I worked as officer secretary when the main topics in our section were concerning natural disaster, emergency, best practice to rescue and curate damaged books. Since 2008, over the time, they have sponsored the special interest group ENSULIB. You know, they maintain, the past chair maintain a constructive relationship and active collaboration that has been always very positive. Now they are section. Many wishes. Again, the general themes for the initiative concern the possible impacts on libraries due to climate change and the sustainability of their services in the context of the sustainable developing goals of Agenda 2030, to which IFLA constantly refers, stimulating new projects and new good practice to be implemented in libraries. I believe that libraries have more and more a great role of propulsion and stimulation in local communities, favors the growth of new awareness for attentive citizenship. With the COVID pandemic that has hit all over the world, it is necessary to stimulate and promote a form of resilience and also the development of sustainable new projects. The new green libraries are growing too and can help to overcome the socioeconomic and cultural crisis affecting the human society globally. In many countries, long time and diverse intensity of the lockdown have brought about many changes in all life of all people. Also, the daily use of digital for contacts, for smart works in schools, and has generated an unthinkable widespread use of communication, but also other power, energy lacking in the future. We pay attention for this. Sorry. This global crisis, libraries are showing a good ability to react and to the changes imposed for the severe, dramatic sanitary situation. We don't know yet when it will be defeated. The sustainability of libraries during the pandemic is one of the most discussed topics, together with the impact on the COVID on socioeconomic and cultural life. Then on the old cultural heritage that should be protected and also valorized. Libraries, as great hub of information, can give a high contribution. I'm convinced of this. Preservation and conservation, sharing with the ENSULIB mission, will continue to collaborate also in the future, is my hope and desire. We agree to carry out together action for transformation with great commitment, encouraging libraries to be more and more inclusive and more green. I cut here because too long. Libraries have to manage in difficult times the long-term preservation and conservation of registered analogic and digital heritage, all in libraries and archives too, but also museum, I think I know, but also oral sources and in their context, their buildings and landscape and so on, the nature in general. Finally, I close here, I have to thank, but last but not least, Vitiello, Megan, Petra, and other colleagues of the professional governance structure who support this event for their great availability and support. Thank you for your attention. Enjoy your webinar. Thank you to all.
Thank you, Ornella. We are going to have now our first 3 speakers. And after that, we have short discussion, so you can make your questions. And I think it's best to make your questions in the chat. So Vivian will help us to continue from there. And our first speaker is Giuseppe Vitiello. He has been director of EBLIDA, European Bureau of Library Information and Documentation Association since 2019. He has also served as the head of unit, program advisor an expert in various international organizations like European Commission and Council of Europe. He is author of 6 books and more than 100 articles in library and information science and history of culture. And his title of presentation is Libraries and the SDGs After COVID, How to Face the Socio-Economic Pandemic. You're welcome, the screen is yours.
Thank you. Thank you for the presentation. So I'm going to share my slides, just a moment. Can you see them?
No.
No. Okay, just I will try again. And now?
Okay, now we see it. Yes, okay. Perfect.
Good. Full screen. Sorry for these technical inconveniences. Okay, now I'm ready. Thank you very much for having invited me. I'm very pleased to be within the ENSULIB context. And so a few words about EBLIDA, for those who are not aware of this organization. EBLIDA stands for European Bureau of Library Information and Documentation Associations. And we cover 35 countries, and we have some 130 members. We traditionally, our organization is born in 1992, and it was born, so it's one of the oldest library organization active at European level, together with LIBER. And we were born with a mission, with a precise mission to lobby with European institutions and on legal matters, something like copyright, like landing rights. And we have been doing this for at least 25 years. 2 years ago, then we found out that, in fact, we started to sit, let's say, on the opposite direction of the train. You know, it may be a little bit uncomfortable if you sit in the opposite direction of the train, but you have a clearer picture of the landscape, and also you can focus on details. And what did we find out? We found out that actually copyright is a pervasive issue, that landing right is a pervasive issue, and all these things now are dealt with within in-library institutions. There are special offices, and of course all organizations now are well aware of these legal matters. So after the Copyright Directive of 2019, we tried to shift focus, and we focused on SDGs. I would like to say a few words about the strategy that EBLIDA is pushing also, and to put it in relation with the IFLA strategy, at least what appears from official documents. There is a difference between EBLIDA and IFLA in this approach. We have a truly European approach, and when you say, but why isn't the program universal? Yes, it is universal, but there are many differences. I mean, in Europe, for instance, you know that there are 232 indicators for the United Nations programs, the Agenda 2030. But in Europe, Eurostat, the official European Office of Statistics, only maintain 100 indicators. And this is because we Europeans, we think that we have attained many of the SDGs that are present in the United Nations programs. A second difference may be that IFLA is calling for stories, and they have created a wonderful tool, the IFLA Library Map of the World, and you will find these stories in the IFLA Library Map of the World. But we think that there is more. There are, in Europe at least, we can go much farther than stories, and we can create true policies and policies for libraries that can be assessed through indicators. And for this, we have created the EBLIDA Sustainable Development House, which enables administrators, library administrators, but also local administrators to advocate for libraries. And it is what I would call advocacy from below. There are 4 false myths we consider that should be, that are present in the perception of the Agenda 2030. The first is that SDGs are nice, but they do not fall within the library's core mission. I mean, the library mission is to book circulation, and then there are the SDGs. That's not true. We consider that the Agenda 2030 is the new framework for libraries, and it should be really the core mission of libraries, or even more so that it is the core mission of the European Union, and it is the core mission for many, many European countries. The second false myth is that SDGs are really focused on environment or climate change. It is true, but I would say that this is an involuntary Greta Thunberg effect. It's the fact that we are all very much focused on environment, but if you look at the whole of the SDGs, then you find out that there is a very strong social and economic pillar. The third false myth is that SDGs concern mainly macro policies, you know, fiscal and legislative policies. And it is true indeed, because if you have, let's say, a tax on fuel, then of course you are incentivizing the acquisition of electric cars. But yes, I mean, talking about the tax on fuels, this happened in France like 5 years ago or 4 years ago. They did the right move. They put a tax on fuels, and immediately after they had yellow jackets in the streets. And what does it mean, this? Because they hadn't thought that before you go for micro policies, you have to look at micro policies, and in particular, the change of lifestyles. And we consider the libraries can do a lot to change lifestyles. And then the fourth false myth is that SDGs are nice, but they are for small scale projects of demonstrative nature. Not at all. I mean, projects after project, and especially if there is a national library policy for SDGs, then it becomes a true policy, and this is the way the whole nation actually can attain SDGs. So we started a strategy that was in 2000, so last year, and the strategy has a very vague name. It's Think the Unthinkable, but I think that the subtitle of this strategy is much eloquent. It is a post-COVID European Library Agenda, meeting Sustainable Development Goals, to be funded by European Union structural and investment funds. So this is after the pandemic, then we can go towards, we can deal with the socio-economic pandemic. So we have had 3 workshops last year in October, and this year in the first half of 2021, we had workshops in 7 countries, France, Italy, Netherlands, Greece, Latvia, and Spain. And we also are focusing on structural funds because we think that they help libraries to be structurally important in a country. So what do we provide? We provide Think the Unthinkable services of consultancy, of change of best practices. We also look for sources of funding, how these projects can be funded. And of course, when the projects are implemented, and this will be starting from next year, then we will be looking at the internationalization of the projects. We have created a tool, and our most famous, let's say, tool is the EBLIDA Matrix. And I would really invite you to take your phone and to put into the Google search box EBLIDA Matrix, and you will find out, you go into this section. In this section, you find the selection of the EU programs which promote SDGs overtly. Section 2 is the library policies that covering SDGs, because in fact, there are library policies on SDGs in many countries, France, Germany, and a lot of countries, actually, many more than originally I had thought of. Then you also find funding opportunities for libraries. And again, I will say it's focused on structural funds, the main Eurostat SDG indicators, and library indicators too, the ones that we are little by little discovering that can be relevant for the evaluation of library performances and how they can match SDG indicators. I would like, and here I'm at the end of my presentation, I would like to explain why we, EBLIDA, selected European structural funds for 2021-2027. You are well aware that there are many European programs, and I mean many libraries know about Horizon, they know about Erasmus, but Creative Europe. But all these programs, in fact, there is a strong R&D requirement, at least in Horizon, for instance, but also in Creative Europe, something that must be at the cutting edge, you know. Whereas in structural funds projects, the R&D requirements is not essential because there is room for small as well as for big libraries. Then programs are the structural funds are administered at national level. Therefore, you don't have to create these complex networks at European level. And because structural funds are of local nature, then libraries are strongly connected with local communities, and there is more room for them to first to use these funds and also to implement activities. And then finally, it may be down to earth, but structural funds normally accounts for 1/3 of the whole European Union budget. So there is an extremely, really, there is a kind of bonanza that can be used by libraries. So we are providing these services, and at the end of the day, I mean, we hope that all libraries will be structurally important for the European Union. And I'm at the end of my presentation, and I thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much. As said, we shall go on now and then have a short discussion after 3 speakers. And the next one is Minna Männikkä, who's District Manager of Library Services in Oulu City Library, which is located in northern Finland. She is for developing the library's customer experience, mobile and self-service libraries, as well as sustainability issues in general. And her title of presentation is A Responsible Library as Promoter of Environmental Awareness. Ole hyvä, Minna.
Thank you, Harri. And good afternoon from Finland. My name is Minna Männikkä, and I work as District Manager of Library Services here in Oulu City Library, and I will now start sharing my presentation.
Yes, we can see it now.
Okay.
Great. Yes, great.
Okay, so I'm here to tell you about our project called A Responsible Library as Promoter of Environmental Awareness. And Regional State Administrative Agency in Northern Finland admitted 35,000 euros for this project to improve libraries' sustainability. And this project lasted 11 months, and Oulu City Library acted as project leader, and Municipal Library and Kuusamo City Library as partners in the project. What we had in mind when we started to plan this project. In municipal education and cultural services, schools and daycare centers reach children and young people in their daily lives and provide important environmental education through them. As a responsible actor, the library has the opportunity to reach especially the adult population in their daily lives and to promote their environmental awareness and ways of taking it into account in the various activities of everyday life. The public library could take the role as an ecological educator in society. And through this project, Oulu City Library aimed to increase the environmental awareness of staff and customers, thereby raising awareness of environmental issues among local inhabitants. The aim was also to review the energy, logistics, recycling, and collection practices of the library and to reduce the environmental impact of its operation. In this project, Oulu City Library aimed to develop a sustainable library roadmap based on the UN Programme of Action on Sustainable Development, Agenda 2030, and its objectives. The foundation is also based on City of Oulu environmental program and on library's own eco-promises. We aim to design libraries a green visual image that can be seen both in customer rooms for library users and on staff premises for librarians. The output of the project can also be used in region's other libraries, as well as in the units of other actors in municipal education and cultural services. We aim to provide training for employees to manage energy issues related to their own work and to raise other environmental awareness. And training events open to customers were also organized. And then we aimed also to develop libraries' recycling processes so that all recoverable material is diverted to recycling or power generation. What did we achieve with this project? The project produced information material for libraries in the area and for other actors. The environmental awareness of library staff and customers is increasing, contributing to the reduction of each of its own ecological footprints, and the ecological burden of libraries' own activities will be reduced in the future. And as examples of information material are different kind of publication templates, like this PowerPoint model, which I am using, and this logo here in Finnish and in English. And project produced also waste signs for waste bins and informative stickers, which can be used in staff and customer rooms. But the most important environmental act of the project was the preparation of an action plan for sustainable development for the Oulu City Library. And the roadmap supports the library's environmental work and will make the work more consistent and planned. And the roadmap is based on the goals of the UN Agenda 2030. The roadmap defines the main development areas and sets implementation plan for each area. The 4 key targets of the roadmap are increasing the environmental awareness, reducing environmental impact, responsible construction, and the sustainable library of the future. The roadmap also lists 2 special targets for further advancement, and these are resource-wise regional development work and promotion of better remote work practices. And all targets were also reflected with the agenda goals. Although all 17 SDGs are relevant to libraries in some level, we decided to take 11 of them, which best reflect the aims of our sustainability plan as the basis for this roadmap. And these are goals number 1, 3, 4, 7, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 16, and 17. here you can see all these 11 goals, how they are included in each target on the roadmap. The overall aim is that the sustainable development will happen through all areas of libraries' everyday work. And that way it commits everyone to our sustainable work in the future. Here is a straight link to a video of the SDGs, which we are committed to, and a link to summary of the roadmap if you wish to look more closely into that later. Thank you so much for this opportunity to tell you about our interesting project, and for further information you can contact me. Thank you.
Thank you, Minna. And we will continue straight to Portugal. Our next speakers are Leonor Gaspar Pinto and Paula Ochoa. Both of them are researchers at Chung, Center for the Humanities, in Universidade Nova de Lisboa, in Portugal. And now, Leonor and Paula, you're welcome. The screen is yours.
Thank you very much for having us. I will be presenting, but Paula will also be present, and we both can answer any questions that you have. Let me just see if I can share it properly.
Yes, we can see it. And now if you can get it a little bigger,
yes,
be nice.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes, perfect.
Thank you, Eric. Our presentation intends to discuss the integration of sustainability competencies in library information studies in Portugal. For those that may not know where Portugal lies, let me just say that it is one of the 27 member states of the European Union, and we have borders with Spain and with the Atlantic Ocean. It is generally accepted that competencies acquired from higher education are a key driver of social and economic transformation. There are even some authors that say that universities have been assigned a central role in SDGs, and as they were set by the 2030 agenda. Therefore, it is our belief that LIS education must play a key role for competence development, for sustainability culture, supporting inter- and transdisciplinary research to deal with complex changes that we are facing. Although there has been considerable progress in the incorporation of sustainable development into the curricula of higher education institutions in Europe, particularly on competencies for sustainable development and on pedagogical approaches, there has been limited research on the connection between how courses are delivered from the pedagogical view and how they may affect sustainability competencies. In what specifically concerns the intersection of library information service studies with sustainability competencies, management, and sustainability itself, the main research focus has been on sustainability literacy. In this context, we seek to contribute to the debate on sustainability transdisciplinary context and also on the relevance of reflecting on LIS students' recognizable qualifications, profile, and employability. We want also to discuss the strategic approach to sustainability competence in LIS studies that we followed in our university, anchored in the creation of a Master in Information Management and Curation in 2015. The strategic approach to sustainability competence that we developed in the Master in Information Management Curation is mainly anchored in two course units. One is performance evaluation and sustainability in information services, and the other course unit is organizational management and behavior. In what concerns pedagogical methods, both course units put an emphasis on students' activating methods, frequently focused on solving real community problems. For instance, in the performance evaluation and sustainability courses, students explore and apply the model for the alignment and evidence gathered of libraries' contribution to sustainable goals, which is part of a guide for libraries, which its main focus is to teach and to guide how to align goals that are at the macro level, just like Giuseppe Vitiello mentioned about the main focus of EBLIDA. So what we try to do in that guide, which was tested in public libraries, is to help align macro level strategies and policies with the local level of action of public libraries. During these two course units, students should develop a set of competencies that are useful and targeted at sustainability. These competencies are critical thinking and analysis, strategic alignment, which is this focus on the ability of aligning the macro level with meso and micro levels, systems thinking and anticipatory thinking, evidence-based management and impact evaluation, advocacy and personal involvement, communication and use of social media and narrative tools, ethics, equity, inclusion, and tolerance for ambiguity and uncertainty, and sustainability informational behavior. As to the main outcomes of our experience in this academic context, this approach prepares students for sustainability intervention areas such as information and sustainability literacy trainers or facilitators for libraries' internal and/or external audiences and stakeholders. 2, advocacy, impact evaluation, and evidence-based management to promote information services contribution to sustainable development. And 3rd, research on sustainable informational behavior and greening libraries to embed the concept of sustainability into our everyday life and information practices. So these are our contacts. For any questions or to know further about our experience, please contact us. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you, Leonora. And now we indeed do have questions you can make to the three speakers, Giuseppe, Minna, Leonora, Paula. So is there anything on the chat?
I am not seeing any questions in the chat right now.
All right, so please make your questions now. I was delighted to see how well the SDGs were presented on this section. Nobody has any comment or questions.
I'm not seeing any comments or questions right now.
All right, in that case, I guess we can go on. We are well in time.
Sorry, we have one.
Okay, fine.
It's from Michaela. Can you share any specific examples, Leonore, of videos, brainstorming exercises, teamwork, etc., that energize your groups?
Well, for instance, we use that model for alignment, and we use it in public libraries context. So students were able to develop a prototype for specific libraries so they can gather evidences of their contribution. So it's kind of field work, but in a controlled and limited time of the course unit. And another experience in the other course unit, which is it's more management information. Students prepare, apply for a prize that it's carried on by a management association that has they have to prepare an idea of improvement under the theme of building back better. So they are just in this running for this prize together with other students. It's not, the important is not to win, but to be able to understand the concept of sustainability in applied way and making the information management as a valuable resource, and to compete with, for instance, with other management courses. Our focus is always on information. I don't know if I add something more to the question of our colleague.
All right. I guess that was answered your question. Is there any other comments or questions?
Fenella, I hope I say your name correctly, saying she's very interested in Leonore's presentation.
Okay, thank you.
And that's all we have for now.
All right, in that case, let us go on. And our next speaker is Leo F.H. Ma. He's head of Upper Campus Libraries at the Chinese University of Hong Kong. Apart from managing branch libraries, he has spearheaded several digital humanities initiatives. And currently, he is a standing committee member of IFLA Academic and Research Libraries section, and he has published more than 20 monographs and presented numerous conference papers. And his title of presentation is Revitalizing Learning Spaces, an environmentally sustainable library project of transforming the United College Wuzhong Library of the Chinese University of Hong Kong. And again, you can make questions on the chat. We are going to have 2 speakers, and after that, short discussion. But now, you're welcome, Leo, and the screen is yours.
Thank you, Harry. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Thank you. Good morning, afternoon, or evening, depending where you are. And it is evening in Hong Kong. And I'm so pleased to have this wonderful opportunity to share what we have done in our library. Let me share out my screen first. Can you see the screen, the slides?
Yes, perfect.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Harry. And yes, and I'm so happy to, talk about our project, couple of years ago, and to revitalize the learning spaces of the United College Wuzhong Library. And because of time, I may not be able to go into, very details about our university, our library systems, but it suffices to say that, the Chinese University of Hong Kong is a government, funded university, and we have altogether 7 libraries, 1 main library plus 6 branch libraries. And United College Wuzhong Library is one of the branch libraries. Okay. Yeah. Now, as we all know, traditionally, we regard, libraries, not only academic library, but in particular, academic library was, regarded as a place, a storing space for, library collections and to fulfill our missions to support, the learning, teaching, and research needs of the university community. It has been, working so well for so many decades, but of course, today we expect much more about academic library, and has also undergo evolutionary changes. And today academic library is no longer simply a collection space. It is also a collaborative and active learning space, so that to facilitate the exchange of ideas and to foster the acquisitions and the creation of knowledge, and even much more if we're talking about the third space. And I like very much this framework put forward by Kumenhan and Table about the attributes of library as a learning space. In this pyramid, it works very nicely from a very tangible attribute like location, zones, which is space, collections and information, and network, which is they are all infrastructures. They related to access and languages. But when we move upward, we talk about users of the libraries and activities inside the library, reading, writing, collaborating, etc. And much more, we talk about connection between users, connection between users and librarians, which is the sociability. And up on the pyramid, we talk about ambience and sense of scholarship. We talk about the library image. We talk about comfortable places for our users. So this kind of framework can very nicely shape what we can do about library, in particular academic libraries. A little bit of background about CUHK library in short. And we are kind of busy places. We have 2.5 million visitors annually. But of course, these figures this record was in 2019, and well, of course, we have a drop of usage, and in particular in Hong Kong, when we talk about the social movement, when we talk about the COVID-19 last year. But we believe, in designing our libraries as a welcoming, inspiring, and sustainable spaces is our mission. And we believe our library should be spaces where users interact with both print and digital collections, as well as studying individually and collaboratively. And we provide space for serious studies, individual serious studies. We provide for group and collaborative studies. We believe the library should be spaces that they are technologically rich and vibrant, responding to the changing needs for learning, teaching, and research tools and technologies. Think about the research data management. Think about all these open science technologies that we have to fulfill as academic libraries. Now, this is a snapshot of the United College Wuzhong Multimedia Library. You may already notice that here, there's a very unique word called Multimedia Library, and actually, date back in 2001, United College Wuzhong Library was turned into a multimedia library. By that, it means the entire buildings was used to host all sort of multimedia libraries. But you can see, from these snapshots, the space inside the multimedia libraries was pretty cramped. And looking from inside to the outside, there are a lot of obstacles, and it is not very nice outlook, a nice view. But actually, in terms of the landscape, United College Library was situated on a kind of the top hillside with a lot of greenery, and we next to our water tower. So in kind of renovating our library in 2018, 2015, we make use of all these environmental, uniqueness and advantages to, design our libraries. And what we have done is to make sure that the west facade of the ground floor of the main entrance, as well as the southwest corner, are designed using frameless transparent window walls so that user can enjoy the natural outdoors with dewy lawns and trees. The same concept actually applied to the east facade, lower ground floor, to bring in the spectacular waterfall view. The next concept is about free movement inside the library. The past obstacles on the ground floor plan are removed to make sure that the core of the vertical circulation possible in maximizing air freshness and student convenience, using the new cluster design reading spaces and e-learning facilities. And thirdly, on the upper floors of the library building, the bookshelves were rearranged as clusters such that various interconnecting reading rooms, quote and unquote, defined by the bookshelves are formulated. This is intended to depict a quiet atmosphere for oneself of being surrounded by knowledge. So this is the new look of the library after renovation. And you can see we kind of, we built in a lot of, nice study space, as well as a very greenery, outside view, the lawn outside the library, to make sure that the library is connected to the environment outside, connected to the greenery. So on the ground floor and the lower ground floor, it is an integrated and open space, which is attractive and inviting environment. We provide group studies area on ground floor and learning cluster with PCs on lower ground floor. On the first and second floor, we provide individual and quiet study space, which the philosophy collection is housed on the second floor, and major Chinese classical texts on first and second floor. Now, after the renovation, and of course, we changed, the library from a multimedia library to a what we call a boutique humanities space library on upper campus. And actually, United College Library has been serving as a multimedia library for 18 years already, thinking about the streaming technology, thinking about the video on demands. We saw a huge drop in usage of the the physical multimedia collections. So we decided to, renovate the library into a boutique humanities library. And the Period multimedia library area on the ground floor and the lay reading room on the lower ground floor have been turned into a collaborative learning space with IT-rich facilities. And of course, this facilitates the collaborative studies as well as e-learning activities inside this a user space on ground floor as well as lower ground floor. We provide a range of technologies from hardware, software, and as well as including the barrier-free facilities to our users to make sure that the United College Wu Chung Library is a technology-rich and user-friendly library. And of course, we make use of this opportunity to embed the environmental issues and environmental improvement in this library. And the CO2 detectors were installed at risk to measure the indoor air quality and indoor human occupancy counting. Its motion sensors monitors the air freshness and controls the ventilation need based on the number of visitors. This installations aims to improve environmental quality as well as cost effectiveness. Secondly, with the budget and environmental concern, we have recycled and upcycled approximately 50% of the bookshelves and the old reading tables, as you can see in the photos. by putting newly made plywood tabletop with ash wood plastic veneer pre-installed with electric plugs, USB hubs, and LAN ports for modern day necessity. On the photo on the right-hand side, we have all these USB hubs with electric plugs on the top of the build of the tables. And after renovation, we conduct a user survey in 2019. Remember, our renovation was conducted in the summer of 2018. We collect users' comments about the new service facilities and the environment of the library after refurbishment in the summer of 2018. We received 239 responses. Print response is 172. We have also received 67 online response. And because of time, again, there's a whole range of questions in the survey, and if we just focus on the final question as well as the overall rating, we see a very good response from our users, and obviously they like the renovation of the library. They like the change of the libraries from a previously multimedia library concept to a user space, as well as humanities-based libraries concept. So this is the end of my presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Leo. And let us go forward to Dr. Muhammad Said Mirza. He is a principal librarian at International Islamic University, Islamabad, Pakistan. He has published several research papers in journals of repute. He has also served Pakistan Library Association as federal branch as assistant secretary. Yes, here you are, fine. And his title of presentation is Perceptions of Valise Professionals about Environmental Sustainability in Academic Libraries. You're welcome.
Thank you very much, Harry. I'm sure you are listening me.
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you to Harry and all the authors and the presenters, particularly to the IFLA for giving me this opportunity to present survey-based research with my international colleagues. So I would like to share my screen.
Yes, let us see if it works.
I'm sure my screen has been shared.
Yes, we can see it.
Thank you.
And if you can make it a little bigger, it would be nice.
Yes, I'm doing. Okay.
Yes, now it's perfect.
Yes, I would like to start from the introduction. As Pakistan is ranked at number 5 among the most vulnerable countries to be affected by climate change. According to a report published by the think tank German Watch in February 2020, Pakistan has lost about 10,000 lives, suffered economic damages worth $3.8 billion, and encountered 152 extreme weather events between 1999 to 2018. According to a World Bank report, managing air and water pollution, managing land and water sustainability, including agriculture and water nexus, and building resilience to natural disasters are 3 major challenges to environmental sustainability. Pakistan has paid serious attention to addressing growing environmental challenges in recent times. Several policies and public sector initiatives have been effect, and several acts, legislations, have been promulgated. Strengthening of environmental protection agencies, we say here EPA, environmental protection agencies at federal and provincial levels, setting up of environmental laboratories, environmental courts, national environment quality standards, setting up the National Energy Efficiency and Conservation Authority are all significant milestones by the governments. To minimize adverse effect of this global challenge, awareness and mobilization of human resources on this issue is utmost required on war footing. So my paper basically is an attempt in this direction, just to see how our librarians, information professionals are aware about this big phenomena which Pakistan is being faced. So the core objective of this research is to understand the perceptions of library and information professionals about environmental sustainability and practices in academic libraries of Pakistan. The methodology which I have used to investigate the research objective I have used the quantitative methodology and online survey of LES professionals was launched on 3 listservs on Yahoo groups, and only 49 responses were submitted. I think it's a small response, but however, I was not have any second option, so I decided to use this response for the analysis of this paper. If we see the data analysis of this paper regarding the sector, the response was from public sector. There were about 70% response rate, while 30% libraries were from private sector. If we see province-wise, we can see here that majority of the response were from the province Punjab and Islamabad Capital Territory. Regarding the gender, we can see here majority of the respondents are male, about 81.6%, while the age group who responded, majority, about 26.5%, belongs to the age group 31 to 35 years. If we see about the qualification of the respondents, majority, 53%, they had MS or MPhil in library and information science. Regarding the experience of the respondents, 30% are have 11 to 15 years of experience. This slide shows the qualification of the respondents from where they got. This slide shows the Department of Information Management, University of the Punjab and Islamic Open University are the 2 major institutions from where the respondents got their education. When I asked, does your institution have an environmental sustainability policy? The response was 65.3%. There was no sustainability policy available. And when I asked what is the level of your awareness about environmental sustainability and green library practices on 5-point Likert scale, we can see 2.91 was the mean. The awareness level is somewhat most of them are somewhat or slightly aware. And regarding the green library level, its mean value is 2.9, and the results are nearer to the awareness level about the environmental sustainability. When I asked the respondents, when you first time listen about environmental sustainability practices or green library practices, so we can see the responses from this table that majority have no awareness before this survey, and 1 in 13 mean 26.5% have 1 to 2 years before they listen about this phenomenon. These are some statements on which I asked the respondent to give their response. So the statements were: the design of your library support use of natural air and light. 40.8% were agreed, mean 40.8% libraries, they have the natural air and light facility in their libraries, mean regarding the environment sustainability. Next, I asked: the design of your library has provision to storage and use of rainwater for gardening and WC flushing, saves water and money. 16.3% just was agreed. And when I asked about the soft pads have been put it on the feet of study chairs to minimize noise, 26.5% were agreed. And plantation has been made inside and outside the library to create awareness among the patrons about environmental sustainability. 26.5% were agree about this statement. When I asked about your library gets rid of waste by compositing, 22.4% were agreed. When I asked about your library tries to best to keep your empty trash cans, bins around library premises to help patrons to properly dispose of garbage. You can see here the response rate is very amazing, 36.7%. And your library has sufficient staff to keep environment neat and clean. 53% were agreed about this statement. Soap or liquid is provided in the toilet, restrooms of your library. 25% were agreed about this statement. And hand dryer is installed in the toilet or restrooms. 24.5% were agreed about this statement. When I asked about your library provides separate recycle bins for different types of waste, trash inside and outside the library to support recycling activities, 38.8% were agreed. Library staff is aware to write on both sides of the paper to reduce the paper consumption. About this statement, 36.7% were agreed. About the next statement about the printers, either duplex printer is being used, 38.8% were agreed. When I asked about recycling of the ink cartridge for the printing, 18.4% were agreed. Regarding solar energy to use as an alternative, 18.4% were agreed. And about the timer sensor lights reduce electricity usage, 3.5% were agreed. When I asked about the laptop computers are given preference to desktop computers to save electricity, 22.4% were agreed. And use of ceiling fan to cool down library premises instead of air conditioning, 49% were agreed. And when I asked about the usage of ebooks to encourage to reduce the use of paper-based information sources, 38.8% were agreed. And regarding the last 7 statements, the library had digitized or digitalized its indigenous collection to save the spaces, 46.9% were agreed. About
now your time is running out, so
okay,
yes,
I'm going to close. Just it's the second last slide. So digitization has facilitated preservation, 30% were agreed. about the email communication with the patron instead of the paper-based or the surface mail, 26.5% were agreed. And about the online catalog of this library has reduced the use of paper and has facilitated remote user, 78% were agreed. So these were some statements, and regarding to create the awareness among the library professionals, 90% were agreed, or they ranked it at the number one, that LAS schools may include environmental sustainability or green library practices in the curriculum. So about the implication, this study recommends that LAS schools in the country should include the modern concept of environmental sustainability to prepare their graduates to teach information literacy in environmental sustainability. Library association may organize seminars, conferences, and workshops to educate their members. Constitution of special interest group, initiate a newsletter or allocating some pages in already published newsletter and launching a blog for this cause may increase awareness about environmental sustainability among LIS professionals in the country. So thank you very much for your patience and your support. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And now we have time for questions. Do we have any questions already? For Leo or Mohammed Said?
I don't have any questions for our second group of panelists, but I did have two questions for Leonore back in group one. So if anyone have questions for Dr. Sajid, Mirza, or for our group two panelist, please go ahead and type it in the chat or use the Q&A before we go back to group one.
All right, and I think that in the end we can have questions for all the panelists. If you
okay, it looks like we have one question coming in. This is for the first speaker of group two. I'm thinking. What do this for Leo? Yes. So what do the students do primarily in the new library space? And the patrons' volume increase, or decrease after the renovation?
Thank you for these very good questions, but I have a problem with my video and webcam. Is apparently I cannot, turn on my webcam. Can Vivian help me on this?
Yeah,
in the meantime,
there we go. You can try now.
Okay, let me try again.
Yes.
No, I was not allowed to use my webcam. Anyway, I answered the question first. And basically, after converting the United College Library from a multimedia library to a humanities-based library, we concerned very much about how our library has been used by our users, by our students in particular. And we have statistics for example, using our lower ground floor, which was originally what we usually call a late reading room. That is the space was open in the midnight for the students for state studies. And after renovation, it was turned into a 24/7 learning cluster. And this learning cluster space was very well received by our users, and the patronage of these learning cluster has been increased by more than 56% of the use of these learning cluster on our lower ground floor. But you can imagine, as I already mentioned, that in Hong Kong, we have a very unique situation in 2019. And remember, renovation was completed after the summer of 2018. But in the 2019, we have, I mean, in Hong Kong, there was a social event, and that it affects very much about, you know, the use of the libraries. So, and of course, when we talk about the 2020, and of course we are affected by the COVID-19, we you know, we locked down for some period of times. So the usage of the library in these couple of years has been, you know, seriously affected by, you know, various reasons. But at least for the you know, learning cluster on the lower ground floor of the United College Library, as I have mentioned, it has been proved that the I mean, collaborative learning space is a very, very well received space for our users. Thank you. I hope I have already answered the questions.
All right, we would have time for another question or comment.
Do we have any other questions for our group 2 panelists? Please go ahead and put it in the chat. If not, Dr. Mirza has to leave us. So thank you so much, Dr. Mirza, and we'll hopefully to see you again in our future VE.
All right, fine. And let us continue to our group 3, which is maybe a little more special projects. So we start with Elaine Harrington and John Hu. They are both from the University College Cork, Ireland. Elaine is a special collection librarian, and she has over 15 years experience teaching people to think critically about information. And John is a senior technical officer, Department of Music. His research interests include production and post-production of sound for screen media. He's also a former content producer for Balcony TV Cork. And their presentation title is the CUHK project, records Cork's soon-to-be forgotten Anthropocene sounds. So you're welcome. The screen is yours.
Thanks very much, Harry. Welcome to all. I'm going to share my screen now.
Yes,
start the
fine.
presentation.
And now it's perfect. Thank
Excellent. Great. So thanks very much to IFLA and ENSULIB for the opportunity to present. And whoops, got there too soon. There we go. So in 2017, members of University College Cork's Department of Music and the library created this interdisciplinary research project, the Sonic Histories of Cork City, or the CUHK project, which explores relationships between sound, space, and history. From 2017 to 2020, the CUHK project used archival and historical sources to investigate what locations in Cork City might have sounded like in the city's past. And from our research, we created historically informed narratives and audio soundscapes. For these historically informed soundscapes, we used textual and visual sources like photographs, travel narratives, and maps, in combination with sonic sources like film, to redraw the lines of what might be considered the historical record. However, for researchers in the near or far future, we also wish to capture Cork's contemporary sounds. When listening to sounds of the city, each of us may only hear our own interests, and as we only may travel across parts of the city, the sonic fingerprint of the other parts is a mystery to us. Therefore, capturing any city's sonic contemporary fingerprint is best completed as part of a community. And to achieve this, we developed Songcatcher, an online collection tool which allows anyone to contribute the sounds of Cork's ever-changing contemporary spaces. In early 2020, we started to think about the Anthropocene, this unofficial unit of geologic time when human activity has started to have a significant impact on the planet's climate and ecosystem. In part, we started because UCC Library's Green Energy team ran a Love Our Library campaign on Twitter, which contributed to UCC being named the 9th greenest university globally in the UI Green Metric World University Rankings for 2017 through 2019. We asked ourselves which sounds are particular to now in much the same way that when we think of harpsichords, we think of the 18th century. However, 2020 had other plans, and as the year progressed, we developed a new sound shorthand for the pandemic. All the new sounds of personal protective equipment and the resurgence in the natural environment, and John will speak more on this. Throughout today's presentation, we're using the lens of sustainability and the urban environment to examining the changing sounds of Cork City, and we explored these changes via Soundcatcher contributions, blog post, and soundscape, and we invite you to tour our website for more. I'll now turn to the importance of collecting and preserving contemporary sounds. London's V&A Museum of Art and Design defines rapid response collecting as acquiring contemporary design and manufacturing objects in response to major moments in recent history. Many of the moments are newsworthy either because they advance what design can do or because they reveal truths about how we live. In 2014, a survey of 430 unique and distinct collections held in Ireland's Connacht libraries was undertaken, including capturing preservation needs. But a mere 2% of these 430 collections were identified as possibly containing sound in any type of media. One of the challenges the CUHK project faces is the how and where to preserve this 21st century environmentally related sonic heritage. We record pages of our website in the Wayback Machine, place our sounds in repositories such as Zenodo, or by creating digital object identifiers. 19th century ship weather logs now provide insights to the Earth's changing climate. Therefore, it is imperative to preserve the CUHK project Anthropocene sonic record for as yet unknown future cultural research. And I'm now going to hand you to John, who will talk on the practical sound recording aspect. John.
Thanks, Elaine. So a key element of the project is the engagement with the city and the wider community. And we've organized several events where we encourage the public to join in on sound walks and familiarize themselves with the practice of listening to the environment while also making recordings with whatever they have available. And typically that's just a mobile phone. But the art of field recording is best practiced using a portable audio recorder and a pair of headphones. Wearing headphones and pointing the microphone is quite an insightful experience as we start to hear and notice sounds which usually pass through us unconsciously. As the ethnographer Stephen Feld describes it, the practice of field recording presents an enhanced way of listening to people, places, and objects. Perspective plays an important role when field recording, with the microphone acting as a sort of lens, magnifying sounds as you get closer to them. In the slide, you can see an image of a motor of a Singer sewing machine in a sewing shop in Cork city centre. And attached to the motor is a contact microphone which captures the mechanical rhythms which accompany the users of these machines. Of course, there are a whole plethora of microphones available, each with its own set of characteristics and uses, but much can be achieved with simple low-budget devices. R. Murray Schafer, who popularized the term soundscape and who founded the World Soundscape Project in the 1970s, talks about the soundscape being composed of various general types of sounds. These include keynote sounds, which could be background sounds which often act unconsciously on us, such as, for example, the hum of the ventilation system in your library. Sound signals, these have more semantic meaning and they alert us to things. And then sound marks are more location specific. So in Cork, for example, we have the Shandon church bells, or we have the industrial activity at the Cork's port. And of course, these general groupings can be categorized in a multitude of ways for tagging and archival purposes. As Elaine mentioned earlier, the Soundcatcher app is a tool hosted on our website, which allows users to upload geotagged recordings with accompanying descriptions, tags, and images. These are then displayed on an interactive map. Sounds can vary from discrete individual sounds to broader soundscapes. And here you can see various points representing sound recordings around the city. And of course, we hope these types of projects will serve future sound historians. Of course, naturally, we started to ask, how has the global pandemic affected the soundscape of the city? And what are the sounds that define this strange time? Various stages of government lockdowns have resulted in decreased human activity in our towns and cities, and at times led to our city centres being almost abandoned. The quietening of the urban soundscape led to a lot of commentary on the perceived increase in birdsong, for example. This at a time when electric mobility devices such as electric cars, bikes, scooters are becoming more widely available, is continuing to shift the urban soundscape. However, the onset of COVID has brought with it a new sonic palette, which plays a mechanized soundtrack to our maladaptive behaviors of sanitizing, scrubbing, cleaning, and socially distant forms of communication. For example, the UCC library, like many buildings, has changed its activities and cleaning protocols, and the slide shows some examples of these. The soundscape of the city is likely to further evolve as traffic is electrified and the movement of heavy industry away from our city centre continues. In Cork, for example, much of the port activity, which defines the soundscape of that part of the city, is in the process of being moved further out the harbour. And we are actively documenting this activity before the sound of foghorns, cranes, and lorries fades from the consciousness of city dwellers. To hear a short montage of field recorded sounds which have become familiar to people using UCC's library during the pandemic, I would encourage you to see our latest blog post by searching the CUHK project. And I think we'll post a link to that in the group chat if you want to check it out. So thanks very much for listening.
Thank you.
Thank you, Elaine and John. And let us go to our last speakers, Fenella G. France and Andrew Forsberg. They are both from Library of Congress. Fenella is a chief in Preservation Research and Testing Division. She is an international specialist on environmental deterioration to cultural objects. And Andrew is a preservation researcher, Preservation Research and Testing Division also in Library of Congress. He researches using internet-based technologies to improve data sharing and collaboration between the sciences and humanities in cultural heritage institutions. And the title of presentation is Assessing the Condition of the United States National Collection. And Fenella, you are already there. You're welcome.
Thank you. Such a pleasure to be here, and Andrew will be controlling our slide deck this morning. So really wonderful presentations so far. Thank you so much. And I just wanted to give you an overview of the project we've been working on, a Mellon-funded project. Next, please. Next, please. So one of the challenges we have with our collections, and which is why I've been thinking a lot as people have been talking about sustainability, is so much of our collections are still in print form, and the digitization of those to make them digitally accessible is a huge challenge. And many institutions are making a lot of withdrawal and retention decisions based upon very subjective and incomplete information. There's been a number of print and future of the print initiatives that have talked about the need for objective data in terms to assisting with decision makings to make those decisions. And that's been a large part of what we've been looking at here as we think about what sort of pragmatic decisions need to be made. Next, please. So it's a little bit of background about the project. We had $540,000 for 14 months. We will be extending that timeline given that we were not allowed into our building for about eight months. So we're a little behind with the physical testing, but our two researchers, Andrew and Robin, have been phenomenal in working to try and get back on track with that. And so the point is to actually objectively assess the condition of a select set of representative sample of books from the time period 1840 to 1940, which is really where we'd start to see the mass production of books and the aesthetic papers. So we wanted to take that time snap to look at where the challenges might be. And we're literally looking at physical, chemical and optical data to assist with those decisions. Next, please. We have 5 research partners, so essentially 5 different climatic zones: Cornell, Miami, Washington, Arizona, and University of Colorado at Boulder. And we're analyzing the same 500 volumes from all of the partners. We did a representative statistical extraction from all of the different decades so that we could try and make sure that we had a good representative sample from those. Next, please. I just want to give you a link to the webpage that explains a little bit more. I know we'll just be talking about this very briefly today, but I hope you'll visit our webpage there to sort of look at the project and see a little bit more about what we're doing. And we keep trying to update and add new information to this. Next, please. So in terms of the data analytics and trends, as I said, we have collected from 5 different climatic zones. So in terms of sustainability, there's also that question. It always comes back to how many copies do we need to keep and how do we know and make that decision? So the storage conditions, and there are huge costs involved with that. So in terms of preservation, if we look at the inherent material, the text block of the volume, what is the impact of very controlled relative humidity and temperature conditions, and can we see from this research with the looking very intently at the physical, chemical and optical properties, can we actually see whether in fact different environmental controls have long-term shown any differences in that? The environment, of course, of the specific location, we don't have a lot of information about that, given that there's not much historical data about when different partners started to control the environment, but we're trying to add that in, and also the usage as well in terms of the circulation data. Next, please. In terms of the visual assessment, this has become really interesting. So if I'm looking at a volume and someone in Cork is looking at a volume, are we actually assessing it in the same way? So that if we're trying to make decisions about who else has a volume and whether we can actually, withdraw our volume, can we actually know that we're looking at it and assessing it in the same way? And what does the catalogue information tell us, and can we trust that? Next, please. So we've been collecting all of that information. We have some challenges with the OCLC data, it's always interesting because every catalogues just slightly differently. So we've verified all of this information and found a number of challenges with partners. For example, one partner had sent us what they thought was an original 1865 book, turned out to be a facsimile from 1980 or 2020. So very interesting in terms of some of that catalogue information. Our partners have been very willing to understand and work with us on that, and willing to accept challenges in their own cataloguing. Next, please. So we've really focused on trying to standardise the way we're describing the condition of the materials. I'm just going to focus on the text box. So you can see here 4 categories. We're really focusing on the physical, the structural, which might not always relate, it may be sort of part of the binding issues, the visual, where we see the most variation in subjective assessment, and then things that have happened to the volume. And these are the areas we're starting to link with some of our objective assessments. Next, please. What does identical look like? We started taking an image of the stack of the books each time a new shipment came in. These are supposed to be the exact same books from 5 different research libraries. As you can see, they look rather different, and that was a stunning observation to us, how different. In the first go round, we had one book that was twice as big and twice as thick as the others. And so the same volume doesn't always look exactly the same. Next, please. We've also found, and I'm sure many of you have seen this as well, I was surprised by how many books had multiple paper types in one volume. We have actually, the partners have allowed us to take a tiny strip. We're taking a 10mm strip off of each page to do our objective testing. And if we have multiple papers, we're taking a strip from each different paper type, because if one is more acidic or aging more quickly, then that can have an impact on the entire volume. So this has been an interesting observation as well. Next, please. So we've been linking the visual assessment with the lab testing, and this is where we're starting to try to correlate what people are visually looking at and how that relates to the actual objective assessment of the physical and chemical properties of that. And part of the work we are looking at, but probably won't get in today, but hopefully maybe next time we all meet, is looking at really standardizing and trying to objectively create a more relevant stack test than the currently used double fold. And I'll hand over to Andrew at this point.
And I will try to unmute myself. Also, in this particular slide, we're looking at the same book as represented by the 5 different institutions. So you can see that there's very little, even on a subjective level, that's consistent across them. We have 5 standard tests that we're conducting for each book as it comes in. We test the strength of the paper itself by tearing it apart with an instrument, not bare hands. The acidity, alkalinity of the paper, the molecular weight through size exclusion chromatography. We take 2 different non-invasive analyses as well, infrared and ultraviolet visible spectroscopy. And the intent is to try, hopefully, correlate what we find without damaging or invading the paper with the destructive testing, so we do not need to rely on destructive testing. And here I have, we have various tools, but in this case I've represented in orange here the very first book that we tested, page 85 of that, against an infrared spectra for cotton rag paper from our reference collection. And these marry up rather well. You can also compare all 5 books of the same type or arbitrary books. The same book, but this time compared with a reference spectra for cotton rag with gelatin sizing, which is different again. You can zoom in and pan around and do what you need to do to look into potentially interesting factors. At present, we have 10 core reference papers that we're working with, including some of our own and ISR standards. And from this data that we're collecting, this is relatively recent finding. We're still exploring how it can work, but by mapping the physical and chemical properties in progression from more damaged, perhaps up here in the top left corner, through to newer and less degraded papers down the bottom right, and then color coding those results, we've found that the more degraded papers are yellower, which is what the B star here is. Positive B stars being increasingly yellow, negative being increasingly blue. We have also been looking at how we can categorize from our own reference papers the different types of pulp composition, and with a similar methodology as in the last slide, we have here grouped together the cotton rag. Down on the other end, you would find newsprint, and then through the middle, there are various different types of pulp composition. And here it's in the title, it says prediction. In fact, we're working towards predictive models, but this is more classification with principal component analysis. But we thought Andrew Davis, in particular, a colleague, took some of these books that we've been analyzing and the data, the Assessing National Collection data, and tried to map them onto that preceding model. And they were all over here in the cotton section, and we, you know, what's going on here. But it turns out that all of them were pre-1845, and it's entirely to be expected that they are in fact rag paper. So this is a distribution of the data we've collected so far. Over here are some of the facsimiles and later copies that Fenella mentioned. The vast majority of the data we've collected so far is prior to the 20th century, and they're all mostly acidic, except for the decent cotton ones. And they all are, yeah, fairly consistent. They're also outside of other studies, results like Barrow's. What we need and what we're getting to now are the 20th century books, so we can start to try and work out what changes and how it changes over time. I think we may be running out of time, but very quickly, we have a number of tools for working out more scatter plots. Here, how pH relates to the strength when tensile strength. So with the tearing instruments I referred to before, and higher pHs tend to be stronger, more resistant to tearing. Again, this one, though, with pH measured against yellowness. And it's like, well, okay, the less yellow papers are definitely less, or also less acidic. One interesting thing we did find through some testing right at the beginning was that any given piece of paper from a book is just as likely to be strongest in its vertical direction as it is in its horizontal direction as bound. So for some reason, the printers were not binding books according to the best use of the paper itself and its inherent strength. And finally, just the double fold test, which I'm sure you're all familiar with. We decided we'd throw this in here as well as part of our test suite, just to show how it relates to anything else. Again, measuring against tensile strength, the amount of energy that paper can absorb before it breaks. You can have a double fold of 10, and it can be one of the lowest resistant strengths for tearing, or one of the highest. And everywhere in between, there is no real correlation here between the double fold itself and how physically strong or tear resistant paper is. Fenella, you are still muted, I'm afraid.
Apologies. So really sort of learning more about the condition, we really hope will provide information for people helping to make sustainable decisions as they have to withdraw or how they decide about retention. And we're looking at mining this active data to sort of reuse it for further preservation questions and linking data sets. So thank you so much.
Thank you. We had two interesting aspects of preservation of documents and sounds. So now if you have any comments or questions, please.
We have a question for Elaine and John. Besides memorizing the sounds, do you think your project could help in improving the environment of the city? If yes, how?
My video has been switched off and I can't switch it back on again.
Let's see if this works.
Yes, great, thank you. Just going to take a quick, what was the question again, sorry?
The question is, besides memorizing the sounds, do you think your project could help in improving the environment of the city? If yes, how?
Off the top of my head, I don't know, but definitely it could help in helping the environment of the city. Cork City and UCC work closely together about facets of the environment and how we can improve, say, the air, the breathing, the tree presence, cycling. So there's definite work that could be done that we could link up in different ways. And we're looking to, once the pandemic returns us back to the outside in a less structured way than is at present, of continuing the workshops that we had been doing. So we could bring it in that way. John?
Yeah, and I think the pandemic has made people realize that, it's something to be sought after, is, making our cities quieter places. They're more peaceful, relaxing. So I think anything we can do to bring more awareness of how sound impacts us in our daily lives, is good.
Yes, have you realized, well, we did have a little study on library soundscapes in Finland a couple of years ago, and I realized that we often ignore the soundscape because it's nothing concrete or visual, or it's nothing what stays. So if the library is quiet in the morning and noisy in the evening, you really don't have any idea what the soundscape is, because it's only one little moment.
Yes, we've been documenting different sounds in the library as well. John and I recreated a historical soundscape of the library from the 1880s based on archival sources. And then in very early 2020, just before we all left the library permanently until the summer, John and I went back and we did a 21st century version of the library. I remember the reports that came out from the Finnish libraries about sounds in libraries, but I also find it fascinating that Finland's tourism website is one of the few that include the sounds of the city, so that if you are looking for forest sounds or green sounds or sea sounds, that it is really interesting, and that's available even on the English language version of the website.
Okay, fine. Do we have any other comments or questions?
Don't have any other comments or questions coming in, but again, attendees, please feel free to type in your questions in the chat or using the Q&A. I'm also very fascinated by Elaine and John's project. I thought that was really amazing, and that I know I'm very immersed in the citizen science projects, and I know there's a lot of study about sound pollution. So your project definitely is something that can be tied into that, and I'm going to really probably email you guys and try to find out more about it.
Thanks, Vivian.
All right, do we have any more comments?
We don't have any more comments. I just want to go back to the question from Michaela. She has to leave, but she has a question, and I promised her I will ask Leonore. And since we're recording this, then she can catch up later. And so let me scroll back and see if I can find that question real quick. It's just very interesting. There were like 3 questions for Leonore. So I think her project was like superstar for the session. Let me see here. Sorry, I'm doing my very slow but quick scrolling at the same time. Okay, she was asking if Leonore can share any specific examples of videos brainstorming. I think we asked that question. And then the next one was, Let me see here. Would it be possible for us to see the modeling tools for macro and micro alignment? This is again addressing to Leonore.
Well, I posted as a comment the link to an article, a recent article, and also to the library guide, although it is in Portuguese. So if there's someone that wants to know some more, just feel free to email us and we'll be very gladly answer. And thanks for all the interests.
Okay, and that was the only thing we have from the chat. Does anyone, let me see, there's 2 more new ones. Okay, I think that's all. That's all we have. We do have comments saying this is a great presentation, so thank you every presenters for being here with us today. And I'm going to hand this back to Harry.
Yes, all right. So I will thank all of the speakers. We have very, very nice and varied topics and presentations. Thank you. And I wish to thank you also, Ornella, for co-hosting me, and Vivian, who has been a valuable technical support for us, and also the ENSULIB team, Petra and Priscilla, who have been helping to arrange this webinar. So thank you to everybody, and I hope you have enjoyed the presentations. Right. Bye.
Bye, everyone. Thank you so much.
Yes, thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.